Just one moment, I'll get back to the screen I need to be on here. All right, well, welcome everyone. This is the St. Thomas Attendance Area Review for Locke's Public School. I'm guaranteed I got that right since I read it this time. Thank you everyone for joining online. We also do have a few people joining us here in the library at Locke's tonight. So let's get started. First item on the agenda for this evening is call to order and introductions. All the other volunteers on the committee. I am also the designated chair of the subcommittee, so sorry, you're going to have to listen to me talk. I will get my colleagues around the table to introduce themselves if they'd like.
My name is Aidan Hennebury. I'm also a parent of a student here at Locke's, and I am, what is my title? Secretary. Yes, so I'm taking lots of notes tonight.
I'm Jonathan Villalobos. I have 3 students at Locke's, and I don't have an official title on the committee.
We also have
Mudit. My name is Mudit Seth. I have a son in grade 7, Locke's, or going to be in grade 7. And I also don't have a title, but I've been helping.
titles are unimportant. That's all right.
I'm Melanie Lavery. I'm the co-chair of our Parent Volunteer Association here at Locke's, and I have 2 kids currently enrolled.
All right. We have a few other people joining us tonight. Shauna Dwyer-Vance, who is our Locke's principal, is here, as is David Fife, who's the principal at June Rose Colwood Public School. Welcome, David. If you're not familiar with June Rose Colwood, you will be in a few minutes. And we also have one of our trustees for the area, Megan Ruddick, joining us tonight. Welcome, Megan. Just so you know, Megan is here as an observer, so she won't be taking any questions or making any statements tonight, but she is here to listen and observe feedback. So welcome to everyone here. Just to sort of, before we get rolling into everything, I just want to say too that as a committee, we're all parent volunteers. And there are some other folks from the committee. I should probably also mention who weren't able to join us tonight. Matt Rawl, Shannon Scott, Caitlin Wilson, Aisha Ubidi are all unable to be here in person tonight, but they will all have a role in reviewing the notes and making sure that what we send to the board reflects the opinions expressed here tonight. For those of you joining us online, thank you for joining. There is a chat function in Microsoft Teams, and we would ask that you use that to ask any questions you'd like to pose. And we do have folks monitoring that, and we will respond to make sure that. And so this is a parent-run committee. The purpose is to solicit community feedback on the options being presented to adjust the boundaries for Locke's, as well as kind of briefly go over some of the boundary changes for other schools in the area. Just, you know, we all have our own opinions, but we're not here to enforce one proposal or push a proposal in one proposal on. Ideally, we will get a sense from the room tonight if there is a preferred proposal. If we do, that's great, and we can pass it on to the board. But we will make sure that all perspectives are shared. So keep that in mind. Even if your view maybe isn't the dominant one in the room, we'll still make sure it gets communicated forward. So having a sort of quick look at the timeline here. So basically, we are now sort of at the in kind of the March range over here. So this is tomorrow is the deadline for requests for any further information. So tonight's meeting is timely. So if by the end of the meeting there isn't there's some information that people feel they'd like to know before they can decide on which proposal or provide feedback on a proposal, we can certainly ask that tonight, and we can get that in for tomorrow. We can certainly communicate that back out. Also, if you need more information on any aspect of the overall changes for St. Thomas, there is a website, and we'll give you that by the end of the evening as well. You can also submit your own comments directly to the board as a member of the public as well, or you can express them here tonight as part of the. It'll be in our committee report. So just The 11th is the last date for any further meetings for school subcommittees. One of the agenda items for tonight is to decide whether we do need to have an additional meeting or not. So based on kind of the feedback we get, support an option. We'll certainly try to schedule another one if needed. So we're going to start basically with an overview of currently the status quo. We'll walk through the options provided. Have the opportunity for anyone to ask any questions they would like to the folks in the room. And then basically we'll take feedback, whether that's through chat or whether that's from folks here in the room about what they feel the best option may be for them. If there are questions that you do feel need to be answered, we will note that and send it on to the board. And hopefully by the end of the evening tonight, we'll have a sense of whether we need to have any more school level meetings or not. So the deadline for meetings is April 11th, and then basically at the end of April, all of the school subcommittees will submit their reports to the board, and then basically it will be in June will be the final decision making vote by the board of trustees. Just to be clear, the earliest any of the proposals will be implemented is September 2024, so not this coming September, but the September after. So keep that in mind. For your own students and knowing when they'll be impacted. So basically what's really happening is that St. Thomas is growing, in particularly in certain areas just outside of St. Thomas as well as to the city's south end. So what we're getting is some uneven pressures on school attendance in the city. And particularly at Southwold, the schools at full capacity. Kettle Creek is also overloaded and has a separate holding area. One thing I would mention as well, we're here actually to focus on the options for locks tonight. If you have some questions or concerns about wanting to know more about the other schools, and as part of the process, really do encourage you to go to the board website. There's a lot of information there, including previous presentations from the board that can probably answer a lot of your questions. So this is the current status here. In terms of utilization, Locke's is one of the most overutilized schools in the area currently at the moment. Currently based on 2021 numbers, I believe these are all 2021 numbers. Locke's at 119% of its utilization. So that is beyond the ground capacity is 576 students, and we're at 684 right, which was really obviously resulting in portables. Looking at where development's happening, obviously a lot happening just in that Southwold area as well as the south end of the city. That's putting a lot of pressure on schools in the area, given you'll note by the and so you're seeing my professional presentation skills here. So you'll see that it's not necessarily a very even distribution of where development is happening. So this is kind of leaving some schools underutilized and others past capacity. So we have a few options here for under consideration. Option number one would see a portion of the Locke's boundary carved off and have those students sent to June Lewis Colwood, approximately 112 students. And we'll talk about where the boundaries are in just a sec. Option two would see those same students and there is a third option that would impact Locke's as well, which is actually converting Forest Park Public School into a 6, 7, 8, and basically making some of the other schools listed there, including Locke's, How's the audio now?
Sorry about that. There we go. Thanks, Teresa.
Give me just 1 sec. Okay, so there were a few other options that we kind of floated. We did actually ask sort of about the status quo option, and we'll go over that a little bit later on. One thing that is, I think, probably on some people's minds, and I think it's been popular looking at the questions that have been asked by other schools, is that there is an option to ask for what's called a legacy agreement. And that's basically a grandfathering of a certain number of students, often in grade 7, 8, or grade 6, 7, and 8, who would be able to continue to go to, who would otherwise be going to a new school, either New Sarum or Junior Rose Colwood, but would be allowed to stay on the condition though that they find their own transportation to Locks until they don't enter school. So that is something, it's not mandatory. The trustees may consider it, but they can also decide which grades would apply. And must provide their own transportation. So that may be a consideration for some folks, so do keep that in mind. So I will apologize, the maps, there's a really good map on the school web, on the TVDSB website. So if you go to tvdsb.ca/STAAR, you'll scroll down and you can go to, there is an interactive map that will actually show you the boundaries. It may be clearer there for you than it is here. But what you can see is the current boundary is basically getting sort of reduced in the south and in the east a fair bit. And basically, whether it's Junior Rose Colwood or whether it's New Sarum, the boundaries would be the same. It just depends which school would end up being the destination for those Locke students. So the impacted neighborhood, I know there was one question that asked if there was sort of a way to look up your address to see if you were included. Unfortunately, I don't believe there is. So you just would have to kind of look at the map and find your street there. Sort of the description of kind of what would be taken out of the current Locke's boundaries, everything south of the St. Thomas First Ave and Centennial Road. Everything north of Highway 3 to Ramakia line, basically following Burwell to Greenway Boulevard, and then sort of jogging in a bit to the Meadowvale and Brookside neighborhood up on that side. So basically north of Greenway, Greenway Boulevard, Haven Ridge and Circlewood Drive become the new sort of western limits. I guess they should be eastern limits of the boundary. So this is sort of how the status quo looks in terms of how schools are being utilized. What you can see there is that we have a few schools that are being overused. Locks is one of the most currently overused schools, as is Kettle Creek. We have a couple of others like Eldon Court and Forest Park that are actually being underutilized. So looking at Locks, Locks will actually go back to 110% of utilization by that 2029 window. Based on the feedback from the board, that's still overutilized, even though it's green on the chart. It's still considered overutilized. So ideally, anytime there's more than 100% capacity, that probably means concessions to either have a portable or some other kind of reconfiguration in the school to accommodate that. So this is boundary change option number 1. So when we talk about area 5, it's that area kind of that is currently makes up the eastern portion of the Locke's boundary. Those students would go to Junior Rose Colwood, and basically Junior Rose Colwood would then send some students to John Wise in a shift. One thing to keep in mind is that although it doesn't look like there's a huge net change of students for some of these options, it is part of a bit of a domino effect. So all those schools are each there's other proposals going on for other schools. And so there's a bit of a shuffle going on to try and optimize space across the city. So that means those folks from those 112 property students, and that's again 2021 numbers would end up going to June Rose Colwood. So basically, this is if option one comes to pass, this is the predicted utilization of those schools going forward. And what we would see by 2024 is that Locke's would be much closer to its actual capacity and would actually be below 100% capacity by 2029, which would probably mean no more portables basically for the school here. It also means some of the other schools that are currently underutilized will be a little bit closer to capacity as well. So looking at, for example, Forest Park and John Wise, with their capacities go up as well. So option two would be to send the students to New Sarum Public School. In this case, it's the same 112 or so students in that eastern boundary in Area 5. Then in this case, we'd go to New Sarum, and then New Sarum would send these students to Forest Park under that agreement. That currently make it part of its boundaries. And that's how the table would look there. So the impact on Locke's is obviously the same. It's the same number of students. It's the impact of the other schools that would change slightly. For example, New Sarum would be much closer to capacity in 2024 and 2029. There is that final option that we spoke about would basically make Forest Park a dedicated grade 7 and 8 school. And then Mitchell, Hepburn, Locke's, and Elegant Court would send their grade 7 and 8 students to Forest Park. So those schools would become K-6 only, and then basically that would become effectively a middle school for the area. So the difference here is obviously this isn't so much of a boundary change as it is moving some grades wholesale from a collection of schools and concentrating them in one spot. There are some caveats to the Forest Park option. There's currently a moratorium on the pupil accommodation review, given the number of students that would be impacted. So if that's the option the trustees choose, it will require a few extra steps to be approved before it could be implemented. These are just some number comparisons between the grade reconfiguration approach. So that option 3, boundary adjustments, in which case this would be, this is the New Sarum option there. But you can sort of see the percentage of students being moved. In both cases for Locke's, obviously it's the same number of students being moved in both cases. So it's 20%, slightly higher grade 7 for the grade reconfiguration up. And wanted just to bring this back up, just because there was no board slide there. We will talk about the responses we received from the board. Generally speaking, some version of the status quo, to be perfectly honest, isn't likely to happen, given that there are so many changes happening across the city that basically everyone has changes coming. It's just a question of which changes are. However, keep in mind that legacy agreement is an option and may be something that, especially those folks who are in the impacted area, may want to consider asking for, with the proviso that if you did take advantage of it, you would have to provide your own transportation to school for your students. So I guess we can have a question and answer sort of option now for anyone who had questions about the options presented. If that was unclear, we can certainly, we don't have special knowledge. We attended the online meeting from the board, so we're happy to try and answer that if we can. We also have a couple of folks in the room who can maybe try and answer if they can. So if you have any questions, please put that into the chat. Comments? Because if you don't have questions, you may certainly have feedback. So we're happy to hear that.
Easier for people, we could set up a line and they could unmute and speak if that's easier.
Would people prefer to sort of ask questions?
We do have one that just came in.
So we do have one question from Kobe. In the end, who makes the decision on which option is chosen? That is the trustees, is my understanding, and anyone can correct me if they wish, but my understanding is the trustees have a fair bit of latitude in deciding which options actually get implemented or to what extent they get implemented, basically.
And our understanding. Excuse me, as well as similar meetings that have been happening at all the schools that are potentially impacted.
The other thing I would say as well is, obviously, and I know there are some concerns. I know as parents sitting around the room talking about the options ourselves, about relationships, obviously being broken up, and friendships, and despite being close to and stay in the same neighborhood, people who've broken up. If there is one option that isn't necessarily preferred, but is maybe the least bad, that is also something that we can take back with those caveats.
We've got a few comments coming in here. Cheryl says, as much as I would prefer things to stay the same, I think the option of a grade 7-8 school is the best idea, given all the kids would get to go and move on with their entire peer group. Sherry M says, I agree with Cheryl. Excuse me. Jenny C, I agree, and it would make a good way for to prepare kids for high school. And Kim also agrees with Cheryl. Kobe asks if there will be a survey circulated to gain families' preferences.
I think the answer to that is there is not one planned. This is the opportunity to provide feedback. So if you have feedback, this is your opportunity to say, I prefer option X, Y, or Z. Please put that, please put it in.
Yeah, it's not good. Okay.
So I would encourage, basically, most of our audience is online tonight. So I apologize if I murdered the delivery for you folks. But if you do have a preference, it looks like there is a strong interest in the grade 7-8 school of Forest Park. But if you have a preference, please throw it in there, and that will sort of be the semi-official tally for the evening.
More comments coming in here. Jenny C, the 7-8 school would be similar to the former Homedale PS. Sherry M, agreed, Jenny. It was a great transition to high school. Cheryl, I'm just curious, is there a particular reason the principal from Chun Rose is in attendance?
There had to be two of us.
Oh, we need it. My apologies, I may not be tracking. Which option is the 7-8 option in?
So that it's not an official option. It's called the grade reconfiguration option. So it's not Locke's option 1 or 2. It is under the grade reconfiguration option. If you're looking at the site.
It's not option 1 or 2. It was something that was explored by the board. Not just something our committee came up with, though.
One thing I will say is I did have what I thought was a nicer version of the presentation that actually put enrollment and maps for everyone to see. The travel time from Locke's to New Sarum is about 10 minutes. The other two schools are under 5. So the other, so June Rose Colwood and Forest Park are both fairly close to Locke's. New Sarum is a little bit further in.
Some more comments here. Kobe, I would also prefer the grade 7-8 option so that the younger children would have less travel time on a bus versus to New Sarum. Jenny C, have there been any consideration or changes to the projections for the numbers given the recent news VW battery plant that you've heard about?
The answer is No, I don't think they've redone any projections. I don't know that they would, based on, it's probably tough to predict exactly when the plant's gonna be finished, and there's just too much unknown at this point. The other thing I would say, and this is me talking, not the board, not anyone else, is that we don't have a lot of development room immediately in the residential development room left. It's more likely that would be captured either in South Wold or where newer developments are already going in, but.
Continuing with comments here, Rawl M 7-8 would be least intrusive. John, the 7-8 option, would all current Locke students not in 7-8 stay at Locke's?
Yeah, as far as I know, the boundaries would remain the same. It would just simply be the school boundary would end at grade 6 and then everyone would go to Forest Park.
Teresa K, option 6 would be optimal, but I do agree with keeping peers together for their mental health. Option 6 was.
I think that was a great reconfiguration.
Jenny C, makes sense. Thanks for your thoughts on that. I think that was response to your comment there. Cheryl, there is no room for Dalewood to grow, and therefore the school population shouldn't grow either with the new plant coming. If anything, we might lose students from people moving away. Similar to what you're saying.
And that is sort of what the board projection shows. If you kind of look at it, it does kind of tail off naturally as we head towards 2029. So seeing a lot of support for the grade 7A option, which is great. There seems to be a fairly clear consensus on that point. Is there anyone who wants to speak up or in favor of option 1 or option 2? I'm just curious.
Cheryl says, I'm interested in which school people would prefer New Sarum or June Rose if those became the only 2 option. Kobe V, if not 7-8, I would vote for New Sarum. Asha R, I would prefer New Sarum over June Rose. John, if it came down to option 1 or 2, we would definitely prefer option 2, no question. New Sarum here too. Jenny C, New Sarum agreed.
Okay. So what you said hands down. Okay. So what I'm hearing is if we can't get our 7-8 to Forest Park proposal 2, option 2 for New Sarum is the preferred choice. Sorry, Dave.
I guess one question for the record is, if we are to choose from option 1 and option 2, will there still be a legacy agreement option? So I guess parents will still need transport, they'll choose option 1 or option 2, but there could be a subset of parents who can arrange their own transport.
Yeah, that is the catch with the legacy agreement, that there has to be some there would have to be hopefully some carpooling agreements happening between parents or something. So I will throw that out to the floor as well. I think it's probably a no-brainer, but if option 1 or option 2, apparently probably option 2 is the preference, happens, would you want to investigate or would you like to request from the trustees a legacy agreement for grades, say 6, 7, and 8?
Teresa offers to carpool.
Thanks, Teresa.
That was a question raised by one of the other schools that goes through the forum, and the way I read the answer that came back, it sounds like that's evaluated on a per case basis, right? Like, it didn't sound like they would be saying yes to legacy for everyone for those. It sounded like, much like out of district busing, you kind of apply and then you get received. That's the way I interpreted the response on the website. So. And there might be some clarification on that if we listen to that. That's just similar than if you're in high school, you apply for out of district schooling.
This is more of a sort of almost a pre-approval sort of just for a period of time for those students to be there. That's sort of how it reads, but.
A couple more comments here. Cheryl, yes, I would definitely be interested in legacy for my then grade 8 student. Kobe V, I personally would not due to needs for after school care. TB, New Sarum, I was driving past Locke's to JR doesn't make sense. Looking at the 2029 numbers, if no change was to happen, we can already see numbers go down. Would it not be a temporary solution to keep the same with 7 or even 8 portables when you have schools like Summerside who opened with 12?
So the answer to that question, that was actually answered in our response, which I apologize for some reason the previous version of the presentation seems to have made it on here, was that effectively, because of all the other movements happening in the city, the status quo isn't an option really anymore. It really is necessary to make space at every school. So every school is going to be impacted, just given the domino effect of everything happening. So if it was only Locks involved, or it was a smaller number of schools, that might be a possibility. But even at the 2029 number, it was still 110% utilization, but still considered over capacity.
John, to be honest, we'd switch to LDCSB if 7, 8 or New Sarum option wasn't available. Cheryl V, portables seem to be the worst possible thing to happen in a school, according to the board. Paul, with all the mental health issues kids have faced over the past couple of years due to COVID, this is adding to the stress and anxiety they already deal with. My daughter is already dealing with severe anxiety, and this would cause great disruption and concern. We also have another child starting kindergarten, and it doesn't seem fair to the children to just get started in JK and then rip them away from the only school they've known and put them somewhere else. In this respect, I would suggest the 7, 8 option, if staying the way we are now, is not viable.
And I will say we did raise the issue of mental health with that, and the response was essentially, if I'm going to paraphrase, was they did try to come up with options that move the least number of students to achieve their goal. But it's certainly a valid point. I know that was a concern for parents as well.
Teresa K, if we were to leave it as is, it would also go back to the status quo. Which, yeah, it goes down to estimated 110% by 2029, and they didn't provide projections any further than that, but it's possible it continues to fall lower.
These are great comments, by the way. I appreciate people.
Yeah.
And I know typing them in is time consuming, so thank you for bearing with us. The other thing I can suggest as well is that you can certainly make your own comments directly from the board website as well. If you want to make sure that your opinion is heard, we will certainly, I think we've got a reasonably good sense of kind of where people sit in terms of their preferred options, but also you can make those comments directly on the board website as well.
Asha R, once a decision is made, will there be a tour or meet and greet for the students and their families?
So to answer Ash's question, I would have to assume most schools would probably have some sort of meet and greet opportunity for the new students coming in, so that without guaranteeing it, I can probably say that's a likely option. The legacy agreement decision is the trustees. So as part of it's sort of like a leather seat car upgrade. It's kind of added on to whatever proposals are actually chosen. They would then decide to what grades it applies, for example, or if it would apply at all.
Cheryl says, I presume a legacy agreement is off the table if they decide on the 7, 8 school.
Yeah, but in that sense, because there will no longer be a 7 or 8 to keep them at, and they are staying with their cohort at that point. So they're just moving into a bigger school.
TB, as much as I would prefer New Sarum, a concern would be if they offer before and after care like Locke's, as that is important for our family.
We can certainly put that in just as a consideration to make sure that there's sort of an equivalent service. I imagine most schools do offer before and after care, but we'll certainly note that as a sort of
Yeah,
as a concern.
Mhm.
Are there any other comments? Questions? Again, we're certainly happy to, if there's more information people require, I just don't know, for example, if you have questions on methodology, on how the projections and stuff were done, that you'd probably have to address that with the board. Directly, so just because we don't have that information for you. In terms of the details of the proposals presented, those three options, is there anything else? Is there any information people feel that is critical that they're missing right now?
We have one more comment from Paul. What about parents that travel for work and need before and after school care? Someone who works in London is huge inconvenience to have to drive to New Sarum and then back, which adds to the stress of my family. Kobe, another family here in need of after school care.
Okay, so in terms of after school care, we definitely will add that in as a concern. Yeah, Paul, I also work in London, and so I share an extra 10-minute drive there and back is a consideration. The other thing I can suggest is that there is the June Rose, the option one, for June Rose Colwood is a much closer school. That would reduce the travel time.
Sherry M, if they go with option 1 or 2, if a family has a child who is to be in JK next year, could they start school at the new school? I'm assuming this means instead of switching after a year.
So the question would be for a student starting JK next year at Locke's, would it be possible for them to go to whichever school becomes the option instead of that, rather than basically go to an out of boundary?
Yeah,
So they can start at the school they're gonna stay.
reverse legacy.
Okay. Okay.
Well, we can ask, I'll be honest, I don't have
Jenny.
any answers for you. That is something absolutely we can ask, and I'm sure it's a business. It's one of the better buildings.
Jenny's comment addresses that there.
Jenny C says, it was my understanding that would be considered from watching the meeting at TSB board office.
That was my understanding as well.
So it may not be a guarantee, but I imagine if they can't accommodate, they probably would.
Cheryl says, I know Mitchell Hepburn has already offered that option to children entering JK rather than them going to Kettle Creek. They've been allowed to enroll at Mitchell. Jenny C says it sounded like they were willing to accommodate families to minimize transition. And Sherry M, I'm not impacted by that, but I'm sure some will have that question.
We'll definitely include that question there as a consideration.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Comments, again, any other information that folks feels imperative to know that we can ask on your behalf? Feeling that, I will
Before the call-ins, can we review the time again? Asks Sherry.
absolutely. Before we review the timeline, I guess the other question I will ask, and feel free to take your time entering this, is do you feel another school level meeting is required? Because I'm not getting a sense doesn't seem to be a lot of extra information being requested. But we can certainly have another one. And we're happy to certainly happy to do that. So there's the timeline there. So if we were to have another meeting, that would be by April 11th. Our report back to the board is due on April 25th. In April and May is the review period and the preparation of the final report. In May, the final report is presented to trustees. Public delegations are accepted in May, and then June is when the trustees would vote. And again, September 2024 is the earliest implementation date.
Such a small residential area that is being cut off with no indication for growth. So why was this area picked? That was from Paul.
I can't speak to why they picked, they picked that. We can certainly ask that if you like. It may simply be because that was the number of students they needed. That made the minimum count necessary to minimize the transition, but still achieve what they were trying to achieve.
From Sherry, I think another meeting would be beneficial for any parents unable to attend.
Okay. Any other comments on another meeting? So we have one for yes. Would you like to hold another one to have present people with I'm not sure if you've been talking with other parents who couldn't attend tonight or were able to make it.
Cheryl says it may have been helpful for a reminder email blast to have gone out today. If there's another meeting, a last minute reminder might be helpful. That's a good idea.
Okay, well, what I can suggest then is we will tentatively schedule another meeting before the deadline, which is April 11th. We will send a meeting invite out before that. And people will have the opportunity to attend that if they wish. Any other comments, questions, concerns you want to field at this point?
Get a lot of thumbs up for another meeting, so.
Okay. In which case, if you're very welcome, Jenny, we're happy to, sorry you had to listen to me babble on, and I will get the better version of the presentation, which was supposed to be on the memory stick, my apologies. We will do another meeting then, and we will host it online again as well. So it's both options are available for folks. We will send out information about that as quickly as we can, so that people can make plans to attend. You are also welcome to attend in person if you like. We have a lovely library here at Locke's. You're welcome to join us in person, but we will do both options. I appreciate everyone taking the time to come tonight. I know it changes is difficult, but we'll do our best to make sure that we get your questions answered, and that we'll provide you with another opportunity to come to a meeting, and you'll have another opportunity to ask any questions or to add any feedback. Yeah, for sure. Do recommend though that if you do have other questions, you can take a cruise by the board website again. It is a good resource. I will throw that up here. So it's that website there is tvdsb.ca/STAAR. So you're welcome to visit there. You can post your own comments there as well. But watch School Messenger for additional meeting information coming soon. All right, unless there's anything else from anyone, any other comments, questions? Thank you. Appreciate everyone coming out tonight and for your time and for your comments. And we will see you again in the relatively near future. Again, thanks for taking the time. Good night, everyone.